The free agency has been an absolute frenzy, and we keep getting messages saying, should we buy, sell, or hold? What should we be doing with these players, with all these moves that are happening? What is the value, and so much more? So I'm going to be breaking down as many players as I can that have been moved, picked up, re-signed, traded during free agency so far. So let's get straight into the video. All right, let's start off with the position that has been affected the most here. And that is the running back position so far during free agency. Over 10 running backs have found new homes, gotten contract extensions, gotten paid, and so much more. And let's start off at the top of the list here. By the way, I may not be going through each and every one of these players, but I will be giving you a Twitter version of maybe my thought process of some of the guys that I may not be touching on more than others. All right, so keep that in mind. Starting off at the top of the list, Josh Jacobs now signs with the Green Bay Packers, 4-year, $48 million contract. Once again, going to the Green Bay Packers. And once, like I've been saying, should we be buying, selling, or holding? What should we be doing with someone like a Josh Jacobs? And for me right now, he is a massive buy, I guess, slash hold if you do own him. At the moment, he's currently my RB9. You can see in Flock Fantasy Community, RB10, and then on Keep Trade Cut, RB11. I'll be honest with you, I do believe he could potentially be rising as we get closer and closer to the season, because the Green Bay Packers are one of the hottest teams going into the 2024 season. You think of Jordan Love, you think of Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft. The offensive line obviously did lose some pieces with David Bakhtiari and John Runyon there. Now he's going to the New York Giants, but I do believe they still have a great opportunity to continue to build. They signed Xavier McKinney on the defensive side of the ball for the Green Bay Packers. But Josh Jacobs, look, we've seen the success with JJ in the past. We've seen him finish as that RB1 just over 2 years ago now, 2 to 3 years ago now. And we have seen the success at the Green Bay Packers running back position with Aaron Jones specifically. What was so intriguing about Aaron Jones? That he can run the ball in between the tackles, but he can also be a pass-catching back. And the same thing could be said with Josh Jacobs. A lot of the concerns with Josh Jacobs over the years is like, well, he doesn't get that pass-catching opportunity. And then that was silenced about a year or two ago. That was also silenced this year, right? And that is also going to continue at the Green Bay Packer level. Why? Because they get rid of Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is no longer with this team. You can see him on the list. He's now with the Minnesota Vikings. A.J. Dillon, if I'm not mistaken, is a free agent, or he's just not somebody that we're not necessarily worried about moving forward. They're most likely going to bring in another running back to potentially complement Josh Jacobs. But Josh Jacobs is going to be somebody that's easily going to be a goal line back. And I will not be surprised if it will be top 5, even top 8 at the goal line usage going into the 2024 season. One thing I do want to point out that I thought was very interesting to keep in mind, if for the future Josh Jacobs owners, maybe you're going to be looking to buy him in a couple months or whatever the case may be, he does have a potential out after the 2024 season. So, which makes me believe, like, hey, JJ, you can get this money right now, but if you're not performing, we're happy to cut loose after 2025. It's only a $9.3 million cap hit with Josh Jacobs. So be wary for the future people, or maybe future Josh Jacobs owners, or maybe at the middle of the season, like, hey, Josh Jacobs not performing. He got injured. Maybe this 2025 running back class could potentially be better, and they might like somebody in that class. So keep that in mind. But at this very moment, if he performs well and he's ticking all the boxes, I want Josh Jacobs to be on my team. Once again, my RB9, RB10 in our Flock Fantasy Community, and RB11 here. All right, going to the next player, I would say the most disappointing player on this list is Saquon Barkley. Look, Saquon Barkley signs a 3-year deal, $37 million, going to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, look, you have to respect Saquon. I'm a massive Giants fan. He continues his legacy, his journey. But I thought it was just going to be with somebody else. I was like, he can go to the Texans. He can go to insert any other team besides the Eagles, Cowboys, or the Washington Commanders. And he chooses one of those teams, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles. It makes sense. But you have to understand that Saquon Barkley, 26 to 27 actually, years old, going to go to one of the best offensive lines now in football. He was playing with the New York Giants, who had bottom third, according to PFF, in offensive line in 2024. I would say the last couple years. And now he goes to the top 3 in offensive line. Yes, Jason Kelce is no longer there, but we have seen the success with that offensive line. And Saquon Barkley is easily going to be scoring in the air and in the ground. He's currently my RB6 in Dynasty. Yes, I understand he's an older player, but if you're telling me if you had Saquon Barkley behind this offensive line that is easily going to be scoring, it feels like almost every drive, one of the highest scoring team in the National Football League, I would say in the first half of the season of last year specifically, I want this guy on my team. He's currently on RB12 on Flock Fantasy and RB9 on Keep Trade Cut. I think that can easily. Right now, I'm flipping in between Kyron Williams or Devon Achane. Who should we be going? Do I want to get the opportunities on the ground in the air with Saquon Barkley, or do I want the limited touches with Devon, or maybe Kyron Williams, who also gets the ball in the air or on the ground? He is somebody that I'm going to be holding / trying to acquire, depending on your team. Maybe if you're in a new rebuild and you have Saquon, try and see how many firsts you can get for him. Now bumping up, right? Saquon has been, I would say, a late first with the Giants coming into this year. If he would have stayed with the Giants, now I would say he bumps up into the middle of the first, maybe even a first. Maybe you throw an extra second. Maybe he's multiple firsts right now, depending on that team that you can sell him to. Maybe they're trying to win that championship here. So Saquon Barkley, not somebody I'm excited to see play with the Philadelphia Eagles jersey, but somebody I can respect, and I will be drafting in my redraft leagues all over, no doubt about it. Next player on this list is Tony Pollard, another guy moving from the Dallas Cowboys, going to the Tennessee Titans here. And this one was very, very intriguing for me because why? You have Tajay Spears. He signs a 3-year deal, $24 million deal with the Tennessee Titans, It just doesn't make any sense. And now I think the fantasy community has been on the same train with me, but if you are in a league at the moment that you can sell Tony Pollard and he believes they're going to be the lead back at the Tennessee Titans, I'm willing to sell. But if not, I think this is really based off of how your league mates view Tony Pollard. But I would say for the general consensus of the community, he is probably best to hold, wait out and see what he is going to be looking like with Tajay Spears behind this questionable offensive line, who did give up a lot of sacks last year to Ryan Tannehill and Will Levis. He's currently my RB24, RB19 in the community, and RB20 in Keep Trade Cut, and RB22 on Flock Fantasy. You have to really question yourself when you think of Tony Pollard of like, okay, where do I value Tony Pollard? Who do I feel comfortable taking at this very moment? Once again, my RB24, this may sound crazy for some people, maybe not. I'd rather have Jaylen Warren. I'd rather have Brian Robinson, even though he just had Austin Eckler with him. Derrick Henry, in a fantasy perspective, in a dynasty perspective, who just signed a 2-year contract with the Baltimore Ravens, I feel a little bit more confident with some of those guys over Tony Pollard. Now, we could be wrong once the season comes on, right? Because they did get a new head coach. They get a new offensive coordinator, and we're going to be seeing how they're going to be utilized. But 2 smaller size backs playing for the Tennessee Titans, I'm not necessarily sure how this is going to pan out. My projection at the moment, it's a 50-50 backfield. Right, Tony Pollard may be, quote unquote, the bigger back in his backfield, maybe the more experienced back, the veteran running back. But Tajay Spears showed some juice last year, right? And that was with Derrick Henry. So for me, I see this more as a 50-50, where Tajay Spears leans more as the pass catching guy and Tony Pollard more as a first and second down punch. Even though we kind of saw that this year, or this past year with the Dallas Cowboys, didn't necessarily love that fit, but still, for me, if depending on your league, I'm willing to sell or hold if you possibly can here. My next player that I want to talk about, I think I'm starting to wrap my head around, and that is DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift is somebody that a lot of the fantasy community does not like. 3 years, $24 million contract going to the Chicago Bears. Yes, it's a three-headed monster. Khalil Herbert, Roschon Johnson, big old Roscoe, I like to call him. The fantasy community does not like him. In my personal opinion, if you are thinking about a long-term fantasy perspective and what this means for the Chicago Bears, DeAndre Swift, in my opinion, is going to be the lead back. Yes, maybe this year. What's going to happen with Khalil Herbert? He still has another year on his contract. You have Roschon Johnson, who was a rookie that they just drafted last year out of Texas. For me, DeAndre Swift is the lead guy and the answer for the future. Now, when I am projecting coming into this year, I would say it's most likely going to be a rotation, which means that he is going to be a massive sell coming into the season, at least the way I am projecting it, right? Because a lot of people are going to say, well, maybe it's Khalil Herbert and DeAndre Swift splitting some backfield with a little sprinkle over Roschon Johnson. That probably may be true. I think they bring in DeAndre Swift because he can bring a lot of dynamic, a lot of explosion to this offense. Yes, he played with the Philadelphia Eagles, who had, once again, one of the top third running offensive lines in the National Football League. Now he's playing with the Chicago Bears, who has known to not have the best offensive line for the past couple of years, but have been improving, right? But you also have to understand this offense that's going to change. New offensive coordinator, new quarterback in Caleb Williams, most likely. You have DJ Moore. They also have another top 8 pick, and DeAndre Swift is part of that rotation. Now, the reason why I brought up the future is because once Khalil Herbert is gone, you're going to be saying DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson. At the moment, DeAndre Swift clears Roschon by a mile. Based off of what we've seen on tape, based off what we know about DeAndre Swift, at least for me, he's currently my RB16 in my rankings, RB17 in Flock Fantasy, and RB15 on Keep Trade Cut. I genuinely would like to know what you guys would do with DeAndre Swift. I'm currently a massive buy based off the price that's happening at the moment, and or hold if I am a DeAndre Swift owner. According to Keep Trade Cut, I think of how he's potentially going to be falling, because I do believe, here's the next 3 names after DeAndre Swift, right? And I'll show a screenshot here. Javonte Williams, David Montgomery, Tajay Spears. Yes, I probably want DeAndre Swift over all those guys outside of David Montgomery. But I do believe Javonte Williams is going to rise. David Montgomery is going to rise. Maybe some other names that are going to be coming up with these rookies are going to rise. And DeAndre Swift is going to be seeing a lot of work, in my opinion, in the air more than anything. So, once again, I'm still wrapping my head around DeAndre Swift, and anything can happen. But for this very moment, I am a massive buy/hold on DeAndre Swift based off of how the community has been reacting to him. And I kind of want a little piece of him if I could potentially be getting him in a dynasty startup in the 7th, 8th, and 9th round. If you really think about where he's going to be going as my RB3. But at the moment, I do believe his ceiling with this team going into the 2024 season is going to be a mid RB2 type of finish, top 24, top 25 type of RB. And I think that is okay for DeAndre Swift, who is quote unquote sharing this backfield with Roschon Johnson and Khalil Herbert for the 2024 season. But in 2025, this can be a whole different conversation that I think we need to be prepared for. Okay. Now, I could potentially be going into a whole other people, but I'll give my Twitter version for the rest of these guys. Devin Singletary, I'm going to be holding. I do believe that the New York Giants are going to be drafting another running back, whether that's in the 3rd, the 4th round. Devin Singletary is not going to be the only guy in that backfield. He's most likely going to be sharing that. Or if they don't, he can easily be a guy that potentially be a top 16, top 20 running back like we saw in the second half of the season with the Houston Texans. So right now, he is a hold for me. Derrick Henry going to the Baltimore Ravens, I absolutely love for a 2-year deal. Hey, welcome home. I mean, my guy's going to be scoring so many touchdowns. Austin Eckler, if I can get any late second for Austin Eckler, who's going to the Washington Commanders, that's what I want to do personally. I think Brian Robinson, respectfully, at this very moment, just feels like a better running back to me than Austin Eckler. I think Austin Eckler has hit his peak. Unfortunately, he did not look the same last year with the Los Angeles Chargers. And that was, to be honest with you, with Justin Herbert. And that was a pretty good offense, even though a lot of those guys was injured, right? I mean, Mike Evans went down, or Mike Williams, excuse me, went down. Justin Herbert went down. But even Austin Eckler didn't look like himself. So he is somebody I'm willing to sell for a late second, or maybe in a package, whatever that looks like for you. Zach Moss is a very interesting buy for me. Buying, maybe if you can get him for an early third. A lot of people believe in Chase Brown. I believe in Chase Brown. But I do believe Zach Moss is going to have a role with the Cincinnati Bengals. Maybe he's going to be your RB3, your RB4 in your team. Maybe you are a win-now team and you just need that extra oomph. I think them signing Zach Moss and having Chase Brown kind of puts them out of drafting a running back in the NFL draft. Gus Edwards is a hard sell for me. They're going to draft somebody, in my opinion. Aaron Jones is a hard hold for me. I like this landing spot here. It just all depends on the quarterback position. Joe Moneyback Mixon. I love this landing spot. One of the best running backs in the goal line, or not in the goal line, had a lot of opportunities in the goal line with the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think that is exactly going to be the same. We saw how Dameon Pierce was trying to punch it in the goal line all last year, and they said he just couldn't do it. Joe Mixon can. That's what's exciting. And Antonio Gibson, I'm a hold. I'm a hold right now because Ramondre Stevenson, what is that backfield going to look like? It's clear that Antonio Gibson is going to be taking opportunities away, but if his value peaks at any point in time, I'm quick to sell. Before I get into my next group of players, version 3 of our scouting report is out, and we have updated with so many player profiles, new updated rankings, and so much more. Here's a sneak peek of version 1 that we released a couple months ago now, and that, what you're seeing here, has been massively upgraded and improved with so much more information. If you guys want to have a piece of that and more, go to flogfantasy.com/land, the best place to support what Zach and I are doing here. Not only do you get the scouting report, you get our fantasy hotline, you get our trade calculator, you get our rankings in season and the off season, and so much more. So once again, flogfantasy.com/land, the best place to support what Zach and I are doing here. Let's get straight into the video. All right, let's go into the quarterback position. This one has also been very, very exciting here. And let's start off with obviously the biggest one so far. That is Kirk Cousins going to the Atlanta Falcons. 4 years, 180 mil. Come on, Kirk. 180 mil, baby. Woo! I mean, you are buzzing if you have Kirk Cousins, or maybe you're in a win-now team and you need another quarterback. You might have to play a pretty penny for Kirk Cousins. But hey, that offense is pretty scary. Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drizzy Drake Rogers. And now you also add the addition of Darnell Mooney, who I do believe is a sleeper, and they do have a top 8 pick in this NFL draft. Maybe they go defensive, or maybe they go offensive line. Maybe they even get another weapon. I don't know. Currently, my QB 17 in my rankings, QB 22 on Keep Trade Cut, and QB 19 or 18 for the Flock Fantasy website. Let me remind you, before Kirk Cousins was injured, he was a top 6 quarterback, top 8 quarterback in the first 6 to 7 weeks before he actually tore his Achilles. This is somebody that was firing on all cylinders early parts of the season. Yes, he has Justin Jefferson. Yes, he had TJ Hawkinson. Yes, he had Jordan Addison. But the same can be said here. Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London. Now, some of these guys aren't proven, as we've seen with Justin Jefferson, as we've seen with TJ Hawkinson. But the talent around him is there, and this offense is going to change now that Arthur Smith is deuces. You know who's this offensive coordinator and the new head coach, Raheem Mostert? And I forgot the guy, the Los Angeles Rams offensive coordinator coming from the Rams. You saw what he did with Puka Nacua. You saw what he did with Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford. This is what Kirk Cousins is walking into. Kirk Cousins, for me, is a massive buy if I need a quarterback, right? If I need a quarterback, and I'm competing at the moment. Like, there's no guarantees, by the way. There is no guarantee that Kirk Cousins is going to pick up right where he left off in this new offense, with this new team, with these new weapons. He's going to have to get acclimated for sure. But he is a massive buy if I can get him on my team, maybe as a QB3, maybe as my QB2 if I need him. It just all depends on what that price is going to look like in your leagues. And at the same time, it's also a sell. Maybe you have Kirk Cousins and he's your QB3, right? Maybe you have Josh Allen and a Tua tags and you have Kirk Cousins. Can you sell Kirk Cousins for a late first when the hype is at its peak? I'm actually to your discretion. You either hold him or buy him if the price is still not right for you, or you sell him if the price is right to get your money, some value at the right price. It all depends on if you can pivot off of him going into this year. I don't want to spend too much time on the quarterback position here because I do want to talk about some of these wide receivers. Gardner Minshew going to the Las Vegas Raiders. I do believe he's going to be a sell for me. If I can sell him for a late second, early third, I'm willing to do that. There's going to be a competition. I can easily see Gardner Minshew getting benched for Aiden O'Connell, maybe Aiden O'Connell winning the job. But if people don't see that, and they can even draft a quarterback. There've been talks of them moving up. Maybe, one of these guys are cut. But they do pick up Gardner Minshew going to the Raiders. Russell Wilson to the Steelers. I don't think there's any value there, so I'm best for you to hold. Sam Darnold, I really don't want him, but if you have him, hold him. I don't think you can get any value. I don't even think you can get a third for Sam Darnold right now, respectfully. Jameis Winston going to the New England Patriots. He is a hold for me because if the Patriots, hypothetically, do not get a quarterback with the third pick overall, Jameis could be coming back, and we've seen success with my guy. Okay, so I'm willing to hold right now, but I don't think there's any value there. Just like Sam Darnold, you hold him because you can't get a third or fourth. No one even wants to send you a couple fab for Jameis Winston. Okay, so you are holding at that quarterback position with the rest of those guys. All right, going to the wide receiver position, which has been very underwhelming, and that's because of the 2024 class has been so good. And I think a lot of teams are going to be building their teams at the NFL draft at the wide receiver position. But some guys that I do want to mention here, you can see Deontay Johnson to the Panthers, Darnell Mooney to the Falcons, Gabe Davis to the Jags, and a name to keep an eye out on is Calvin Ridley, who is most likely going to be signed to either the Jags or the New England Patriots. That with also Hollywood Brown. The guy that I do really want to speak to you guys about, that is Deontay Johnson. Now, we were on a live stream earlier today, Zach and myself. We were talking about Deontay Johnson and what we see. And I see this a little bit different compared to the community. Now, granted, Deontay Johnson going to the Carolina Panthers, who have Adam Thielen, Jonathan Mingo, and nobody else, can easily step into some opportunity. Now, the reason why I'm kind of off on Deontay Johnson is because I think the value is going to get a little bit too high. And at the current moment, as you can see on your screen here, Deontay Johnson is currently wide receiver 40 on Flock Fantasy and wide receiver 45 on Keep Trade Cut, which I technically have him high as wide receiver 38. But I believe he's going to get higher because wide receiver 38 range, that's where you see the Christian Kirks, the Amari Coopers, the Stephon Diggs in a dynasty perspective, right? And it can get higher, right? You think of Cooper Kupps, the Christian Watsons, the Terry McLaurins. I think he's going to get higher because why? He is the wide receiver 1 on that team, where a team that is technically trying to get better with Bryce Young. Now, I do believe this is phenomenal for Bryce Young. But if you're telling me at this very moment, I can get an early second for Deontay Johnson from the 201 to maybe the 204, the 205. I'm willing to do that. Why? Because of what I believe this 2024 class can be. What I can see these guys potentially becoming now. Yes, it may not hit every single time, but if you're telling me I can get at the 201 to the 204, these are the range of players. A Jonathan Brooks, a Trey Benson, a Jalen Wright, right? Maybe is that a Jermaine Burton who I like, an Xavier Legette. Some people think Roman Wilson should be an early second round in your rookie drafts. What about a Ricky Pearsall who can get good draft capital? What if that's one of the quarterbacks like Bo Nix who falls to the early second to the Giants? Maybe he doesn't fall into the second round of your rookie drafts. But still, Malachi Corley's, Jalen McMillan, Keon Coleman. The list is actually massive. Now, yes, the hit rate for some of these guys may not be the best, and we have proven production with Diontae Johnson, who has been a top 20, top 15 wide receiver in the past. I still want to cash in. I want to pivot because I don't think it's going to be a flip of the switch for the Carolina Panthers. I do believe in Bryce Young. I've been a massive advocate of trying to acquire Bryce Young at his price at the moment. But the way I'm projecting Diontae Johnson's price to go, I do believe is going to get a little bit too high for my liking. And maybe this is something that I'm projecting too much. And correct me, I would love to have a conversation with you guys in the comments because, you think of the Adam Thielens last year and people were loving it. Like, dang, should I trade for Adam Thielen because he was a top 5, top 7 wide receiver for a good period of time in a redraft perspective? You probably wanted, if you're in a win now team in Dynasty, you were happy to send a mid to early second or a random second round pick of 2024. I wonder if you regret that now. Maybe you at the actual peak, right? He was very consistent, averaging over 15, 17 fantasy points per game. And you probably said, I'm winning now. Let me throw my second out there. What if that happens to Diontae Johnson and he is a top 5, top 7 wide receiver, but you still would rather have that early second in 2025? Or does it get to the point it becomes a late first? Because you have to overpay of how he is producing. Once again, maybe I'm projecting way too far in the future, and maybe I need to be reeling it back and seeing what's in front of me at the moment. I do believe his value is going to rise significantly personally, and I could be absolutely wrong. I would love to hear your guys' opinions in the comments. But for me, Diontae Johnson at the moment will be a sell if I can get, once again, an early second. And maybe I'm valuing him too high. Correct me if I'm wrong. I would love to know in the comments. My second guy that I didn't really technically want to go too deep in, and I'll make this a really Twitter version, is Darnell Money Mooney, going to the Atlanta Falcons. My guy has got a phenomenal contract from the Atlanta Falcons that no one was expecting, right? You think of Darnell Mooney, who's only 26 years old, 3-year, $39 million contract. And that is some money that he got some more money than all those running backs, guaranteed. Saquon, Josh Jacobs. Think about that, right? What has Darnell Mooney shown? 1 year, literally a top 24. I think he was a wide receiver 24 on his highest year. When Allen Robinson was injured, he was getting all those targets. Now he's going to an amazing offense, in my personal opinion. Does he play the Cooper Kupp role? Does he play the Puka Nacua role? Doesn't matter which role he plays. I want a part of that. He is a buy because I don't think people are going to be seeing that. And if I am going against the grain here with my own take, I've been a massive advocate of the Falcons drafting a wide receiver with pick 8. And if that is not the case, I want Darnell Mooney immediately because I do believe target number 1, Drake London. Target number 2 is going to be Bijan Robinson. This may sound crazy, and maybe I'm so far off on Kyle Pitts, but I do believe Kyle Pitts is going to be more relevant than I thought with Kirk Cousins. But I think Darnell Mooney could potentially be taking opportunities away because, once again, he's the guy that can get separation in the middle of the field. Remember that highlight reel on Twitter that was going on for a while back where he was getting so much separation, and what was happening? Overthrown balls. He was wide open, overthrown, underthrown, because Darnell Mooney can separate. He just had terrible quarterback play. And look, I don't want to go too high into it, but I think he's a sneaky buy if you can get him in a throw-in at the moment. And even if they draft another wide receiver with pick 8, you probably didn't pay too much for Darnell Mooney. Maybe that was a late third or mid-third. I don't think you can get a second for Mooney at the moment, but that is something that I would be willing to take a risk on. Okay, so guys, these are all the free agency guys. I know maybe by the time this video is out, some more guys have been picked up or signed, or maybe more changes have happened. But let me know what you guys think coming into this. Let's have a conversation. Who do you like? Who you're buying, holding, or selling going into this 2024 fantasy season? And as always, It's all love.
Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, L-A-N-D, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy, even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.